pick that up and we'll do our very best to answer that for you this evening. Good evening and welcome to this Ask Me Anything About Property Investing episode number 59. So first of all, thank you so much if you're here to get your property question answered. I'm here every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. to answer your question around investing in property. So if you've got a question for me around investing in property, you are definitely in the right place. Pop that in the comment section below, whichever platform you're watching on. We are live on several different platforms. So we're live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Pop your question in the comment section. We'll do our very best to answer that for you. Remember, here for about half an hour answering your property investing questions. So we'll get our first question up on the screen and we'll just get started. So our first question this evening is from Jack Smith on YouTube, and that's: Hi Saj, what tips do you have for time management, etc., when dealing with multiple properties, such as noting down what needs to be doing on each one and keeping track of those appointments, etc.? Thank you. So this is a great question. I mean, managing time is quite a challenge when you've got lots of things going on. How do you prioritize what needs to be done? So there's a couple of different tips I'll give you here. Firstly, I tend to use a prioritization method, ABCD. This is a kind of this is something I learned from Brian Tracy many years ago. It's about prioritizing what's important and getting those things done first. So when I look at my list of activity that needs to be done, I try and prepare it the night before. What things do I need to do the following day? So what I need to be doing tomorrow is prepared this evening, and then I also prioritize what I need to do. So then I don't turn up in the morning and think, well, what should I do? Should I check my emails first? Should I reply to my Facebook messages first? No, you already have a list worked out with priorities in terms of which thing needs to be done first. So your A's, and you work through your A tasks first. So none of your B's or C's are touched until all the A's are done. What are A's? A's are the most important things that you need to get done that day. So make sure you prioritize those first, and then you have B's. Once all your A's are sorted out, then you might jump onto B's. And then if you've got time, you jump onto C's. C's are generally things that you need to do, but not necessarily so important. So it's something that you need to get around to doing at some point, but may not have the highest priority that day. So only if you have time. Generally speaking, you'll get A's, B's done. You might not get onto the C's, and that's okay. You don't have to beat yourself up about not being able to do everything. It's about doing enough to be able to be productive and moving forward and getting as much done as you can. And of course, it's leveraging as well. It's about how can you get some stuff done by other people. This is what I call the D on the priority list, and D is for delegating. How can I delegate this task to somebody else? So when I'm looking at the list of things that I need to get done, I'm looking at, are there some things on this list that I could pass to somebody else in my team? Or, you know, if you've got a power team, or it may even be outsourcers you're using. So in my example, it's my team. I look at who in my team could be doing this task. Can I send it to them? And then getting it across to them, getting it off my list. Well, I'll keep it on my list so I can follow up to make sure it's done. But generally speaking, it means I've moved it over to somebody else. So firstly is prioritizing, and secondly is delegating. So that's the first part of managing the time. Make sure it's done the night before as well. A great book on this is Brian Tracy's Eat That Frog, yes, Eat That Frog. So nice and early in the morning, get those horrible tasks done out of the way, the ones that you keep putting off. Then the other thing is looking at which tools or mechanisms work well for you. For some people, it's good old pen and paper, write down the list, scribble them out, what's being done. Other people, it might be, you know, something a bit more funky like an Excel spreadsheet. And for other people, it might be certain apps and tools. Now, there's no right or wrong. And I know sometimes people look at what somebody else is doing and they're using these certain apps and tools and think, I should be using the same for myself. But ultimately, it's looking at which ones are going to work for you in your working style. So I still like to write a lot of things down. So my lists are often written down. And that way I can see what needs to be done. I'm crossing them off. That's just my preferred style of doing things. Now, obviously, if I'm not at my desk, that means that list isn't with me, but I have an idea. I might take a picture of it in terms of have it on my phone if there's certain things I need to follow up with or calls I need to follow up or return. And what that also then means is you're picking something that works to your style rather than you adjusting your style to fit into a certain tool, which I think is the mistake many people make. There are so many apps out there, productivity apps, and ways to manage tasks, but is look at ones that fit in more closely with the way that you work. And that means it's an easier transition to be able to work those tools so they work efficiently with you. So Jack, I hope that helps. It gives you a few pointers in terms of being more productive and using your time efficiently and managing multiple tasks, and especially multiple properties. So just on the properties, what I tend to do actually before we move on is I have an Excel spreadsheet, and I tend to have lists, the same list, A, B, C, D, principle for each property, what tasks need to be done on those properties. And obviously I have a team as well, and I have a number of the people that work with me. So these are just the properties I'm directly involved with rather than our entire portfolio, which I'm not necessarily involved with on a day-to-day basis. These might be deals we're looking at. These might be projects that we're actually renovating. These could be stuff that's in planning, for example, or early stages, or these are stuff that's being sold. Where are we with the sales process? So these are just it's simple lists that I have for each particular property. Where are we with those and what needs to happen? Then on a daily basis, I'm keeping an eye on those as well to make sure if there's anything I need to deal with and get done. But I try and delegate as much as possible. That's what I find works most effectively for me. So let's get our next question up on the screen. And this is on Instagram. So Khalid just popped that up on the screen for me. It's Mr. Farouk. If we get LOA, I think it means lease option agreement, are we able to run that into a HMO? Then at the end of the lease, sell the property to an investor if we can't afford to buy it out. So there's a few different things there. Let's break that down a little bit. So lease option agreement, if you're not sure what we mean by that, it's essentially you have a right to buy on a property. So you've got a property which you've got a right to buy on it. And during that right to buy period, you have a lease on it as well. So that means you're leasing the property from the owner. And at some point, you may purchase that particular property. So if you want to be able to sell that right to buy, if you like, to somebody else, then you need to make sure it's something that's transferable. So within your agreement, it needs to be stated that this can be transferred to somebody else. And there's a number of different ways that can happen. So it means that you don't have to exercise the right yourself. You can assign that to somebody else, sometimes called an assignable contract, to somebody else so they can complete on the transaction. And you would charge them a fee for that. So that's one way to do that. With regards to taking on a property on a lease and then turning it into a HMO, a little bit like rent to rent is essentially what you're doing during that period. You have to look at what mortgage may already be on the property. That's the first thing to look at. So have you got consent from the lender? Is the lender okay with you turning that property into a HMO? Now, there may be, but there may not be as well. So that's the first thing you need to consider. Then also you need to think about what compliance needs to be put into place to make sure it works. For example, you're not in an Article 4 area that requires planning. And if you are, you need to go through planning first. Licensing, there may be some additional licensing. And if you want to know more about the different types of licensing and planning when it comes to HMOs, there's a couple of videos on my YouTube channel. Just jump onto my YouTube channel, click on the search button on the channel and just type in HMO. You'll see lots of videos around that. And watch those two videos where I'll talk about it in more detail. But as long as you've got consent from the lender, you're dealing with the compliance side of it, and the owner of the property also understands what you're doing and they're okay with that, then of course, you can turn that property into a HMO. It means you're generating more income. Yes, you might have to spend some money on converting it, making it compliant as well, fire safe, and the relevant licensing, and then you can make cash flow from it. Now, something like that, you probably need it for the longer term, because you're going to have to make an upfront investment to kind of get it working. You've got to furnish it, compliance side, licensing, all these things you've got to do. You've got to spend money. It could be several £1,000s that you're spending. And it might be a little while before you get some of that money back. And then if you've got it for the longer term, that means ongoing basis, you're earning a profit. And of course, if you've got profitable HMO, you're probably going to be able to sell it. But you want to check those numbers and do those numbers before you start. So I hope that helps. Thank you for that question on Instagram, Mr. Farouk, I think it was. So our next question is from Mohammed Asad Suleiman on YouTube. Hi Saj, can you advise me best strategy for self-build another property in an existing large garden plot? Well, if you've got a garden plot which you think is big enough to have another house on, generally it means it might be facing a different aspect to the side road. For instance, if you think it's big enough to kind of fit that, then really where I would start is I would talk to a competent planning consultant and really get some advice from them in terms of what they think that could work. It's about knowing what the local authority requirements are, what they're looking for, what they support, what they don't. Now, some local authorities might be okay with these back garden developments. Others may not be. They may not be so supportive of them. So you want to understand your local authority, and a good planning consultant can give you some guidance on that as well. You have to pay a little bit of money for their time initially, but of course, if you're potentially going to build a house that's going to make you a substantial profit, then this is the minimal investment I would do at the beginning. And if the the planning consultant is confident that you should be able to get what you're looking to build on there, or they give you some guidance on what you should be able to build on there, then the next stage might be an architect put some drawings or concepts together, sketches as opposed to detailed drawings, and maybe a pre-application to the planning office where you start a formal discussion with them. When we say formal, it's more of an informal discussion where they'll discuss with you and give you some thoughts on your idea and see if they'll support it. If it looks like it'll be supportive of that, then you go in with a more detailed application, which has got all the details of exactly what you want to build for a full planning application. That's how I would approach that. Hope that helps and gives you some pointers with that. If you're not already, make sure you connect with me on the various different platforms on social media that I'm on. And remember, if you're watching this, we are on episode number 59, as it says on the screen. However, we've got some change planned. In the next few weeks, we'll be winding down this show. So what that means is you've got a few more weeks that we'll be continue to run this, and then this format will change. We're going to redesign it. It'll be done in a different way, but it's no longer going to run as it is at the moment. So, you know, if you're enjoying these, make sure you're making the most of these sessions. As I said, connect with me on the various different platforms. And then if you're looking for some mentoring support as well, there's various links there, or investing with me as well. So let's get our next question up on the screen, please, Khalid. This is on Instagram as well. So Adam Walden Property. Hey Saj, hope you're well. If you think you have found a great deal as a
deal sourcer,
and all the agents are telling you the rent, but you can't find any comparables online, do you just move on? Well, you see, when it comes to comparables, what are comparables? Comparables are transactions that have already happened and that are evidence, so you can use them as a guide of what you might be able to do. That's essentially what our comparables are. So we're using comparables to be able to get a gauge of, right, if we do this, are the numbers likely to be what we think they are? And that's really what our comparables are doing. They're supporting our research. Now, sometimes you'll find that there's very few comparables available, i.e., as you said, you can't find any online. And there's many reasons why that's the case. And that could be that there isn't very much movement in that market. So properties don't come up for rent very much, or they don't come up for sale very often. So there isn't really a history of all these transactions you can go and have a look at. So what's the next best thing? Well, you can extend your research out a little bit further. So it might be looking at Pacific Street. You extend it by a quarter of a mile or maybe a half mile. That might be stretching a little bit because there could be a lot of change in that space. But then just to get some wider area that you can look at to see what else might be going on in that particular area. Now, of course, the other obvious one is, as you mentioned, is the local estate agents or letting agents, depending if you're looking at letting or sales, where they are the local experts. They're selling those properties or they're renting those properties every day, or that's what they should be doing, right? So they should have good local knowledge. And really, a good agent is worth their weight in gold because of the knowledge and understanding they have of the market. They may know that actually very rarely a property comes up for sale on this street or for rent, but when it does, there's a number of people they know would be interested because it's just such a rare thing, and this is what probably it would achieve. So what you're doing is not taking one source of information, i.e. just your online comparables or your agent. You're trying to do collective research to support what you think the number is going to be, and then see if that makes sense. So I wouldn't rely just on one or the other. It's really about collecting that research together so you've got enough information to be able to make a decision on what you think is going to work. So hope that helps. Hope that answers your question for you. Next question we have is from Adam C on YouTube. Hi Saj, I want to do deal sourcing, packaging and selling rent-to-rent deals. I also want to keep some of them for myself. So my first question is, can I do deal sourcing and rent-to-rent business under the same under the one company? In short, yes, because you effectively have got a trading company, rent-to-rent, depending on how you set up your contracts. Generally speaking, the way most people will do them, you'll have management agreements. It's not the only way, but generally most people do management agreements. And what that means is you're taking on a property as a rent-to-rent from an owner, and you're saying, hey, look, effectively, I'm going to manage this property, give you a certain amount of fixed rent each month, and the rest of it, after paying all the running expenses, I'm going to keep that profit for myself. So that's your that's effectively a trading business where you're selling services. It's management services, effectively, is what you're selling. So your income of that is a trade, is a service. So you don't have any real assets is what I'm getting at in that particular company. Now, let's say in that same company, you decide also to sell deals on to other people that you've sourced. Now, if you're selling deals on to other people, you're effectively acting like an estate agent. If you think about an estate agent, what does an estate agent do? Estate agent takes on a property from an owner, finds a buyer for it, hopefully get that transaction done and get it sold, and then charges the seller a fee. So the seller is basically employing the agent. Well, when you're sourcing, the only real difference is it's the buyer that's often paying your fee. So it's the person, the investor that's buying the deals from you, they're paying your fee as opposed to the seller of the property. Now, you could charge both, but generally speaking, that's how it works. So when you think about it in this simplistic way, effectively, with rent to rent based on management contracts, you're acting as a letting agent. With sourcing, you're an estate agent. So that's really what you need to do in terms of compliance. And yes, you can do both of those things within one company because there's services that you're offering. You're not holding any assets. You don't own any buildings. Effectively, that's what you're doing. You're charging fees on what you're doing. You're not even acting as a landlord in that case because they're just management agreements. So I've also got some very detailed videos on my YouTube channel on rent to rent and how to structure the deals, because I think many people get this wrong. And, probably 6-7 years ago, I was teaching rent to rent as a strategy and how to use it and running some training courses at that time. And there's some very detailed content on the YouTube channel. Look out for that video. Again, on the YouTube channel, search rent to rent. You should come up. And that will give you some detailed breakdown of the different types of contracts and what might be the right contracts to use. And remember, on my YouTube channel over here, we have 3 videos a week, really ultimately to help you get further faster in your property investing journey. Very recently, we hit 15,000 subscribers. So thank you so much for watching and telling me you enjoy that content. There's over 500,000 views on that content well. So just absolutely grateful for you watching this and engaging with me, which is what inspires me to do more of this and help you with your property investing journey. So let's get our next question up on the screen. This is Facebook. We haven't got the name.
Naeem.
This is Naeem on Facebook. I have seen a lot of people say it's property. It's the property market will remain buoyant whilst furlough is in place. What's your thoughts, please? So what's the connection between furlough and the property market? So, I had a video last week, I think it was Friday, that I did, and this is one of the things I was talking about, the property market. How's it going to change? What we're going to see happen over the coming few months? And how is furlough going to affect the market? In essence, the reason furlough has a direct link into the property market is at the moment, furlough is delaying people getting unemployed. In some cases, in other cases, it may be that they're simply going to go back to work for the employer and things will go back to normal for them as much as can be. And this is just prevents them from losing their job during this time, and the support is there, which I think the government's doing an amazing job in trying to put this support in place. Now, there's some consequences for some of this that we have to deal with later on in terms of the costs, but right now it's providing that support. But if you think about it, some of these people may not necessarily have a job to go back to. So when the furlough scheme comes to an end, which September, I think, it'll come to an end as it's being phased out. But previously, it was just going to drop off. Now they're phasing it out, i.e. reducing the amount of money that's being paid in furlough. So as that starts to drop off, there'll be some people that will not have a job to go back to because those businesses are just no longer the same. They can't take those people on. They can't employ them the same way. They can't pay those same salaries. They haven't got the turnover, the sales, what they used to have. Whatever it might be, they may not be able to take those people on. So what happens to those people? Well, unfortunately, those people join the unemployment queue. So that means unemployment rises. And as soon as unemployment starts to rise, and if it starts to rise quickly, that has a massive impact on the property market. What it does, it causes a kind of sentiment where people are concerned, they're not spending money. And so when this kind of mood exists within the market, generally people are becoming more frugal, they're more careful, they haven't necessarily got the funds or the means. Then one of the big things that happens is people stop thinking about buying a new property. They stop thinking about moving house in terms of sale and a purchase of another property. And of course, what happens if people are not looking to buy property is that the demand starts to dry up. If the demand starts to dry up and the supply is still there, then of course, ultimately what happens is the prices start to fall. And this is why furlough has an impact on the property market is it will ultimately mean higher unemployment. Higher unemployment will start affecting prices. Now, there's many other variables as well. It's not in isolation to say just this will happen and this will result in this, because it's quite complex. There's so many different things going on. But ultimately, that's what the key impact is of furlough on the property market. So let's get our next question up. This is from Nafis Rahman on YouTube. Where can I get property development education instead of doing the degree route? Well, property development is one of those things where you don't necessarily need a degree. So years ago, finishing college, going to university was kind of the norm. It was just a follow-on from what you did, and it didn't cost anywhere near what it does today. So when I was at university, I was fortunate enough that it really didn't cost us this amount of money. If I remember, student fees were just about starting to happen at that time when I did my first degree at university. And my degree was in business and IT. The reality is, it taught me a little bit about business and a little bit about IT, but not really what I needed to be able to go off and say run my own business, which is what I went on to do. So there's certain things that you need formal experience and qualifications in. So for example, let's say you're looking to do medicine or surgery or an optometrist. These are the kind of qualifications you need to go to university for, because that's the only route into those professions. Let's say you want to do accounting. Well, you could go to university and get a degree. Alternatively, you could do the apprentice route and you could work way up and still get qualified at the end of it. So there's more than one route. When it comes to property, my personal opinion is you don't need the formal qualification route. You just need the experience. So let's say you do a degree. What's that going to do? That's then going to help you get into a company which may be developing, and you'll have to still work your way up in terms of experience and knowledge. You'll have theory, but you won't have no practical experience. Whereas if you can get involved, and how do you get involved? Well, there's many property related businesses. It could be an estate agent, could be an architect, could be a development business, could be a managing agent. All of these are related to property. It's not that you're necessarily going to build your career in one of those companies, but you are in that environment which is active and involved in property. And what that means is that you start to get some experiences. So you're not only building up theory, but you then get some hands-on experience. And I think you'd be able to achieve a lot more and learn a lot more than that. I mean, two of my older kids went to university. My youngest son chose not to go to university, and three of them work with me in our business, in our property businesses. And I think they made the right decisions of what's right for them. But ultimately, this is a personal choice. If I had my time again, the route that I would follow, I would have finished college and I would have just gone straight into trying to work with somebody who has that knowledge and experience. I just went straight into business for myself, which at that time was probably the right thing for me then. But if I was to have my time again, I'd probably work with somebody for a period of time to build that knowledge and experience so that I can go off on my own and build my own property business. And of course, you build your contacts and connections. Of people are so important in property, those relationships that you build with people. And the way you do that is by being out there, by connecting and working with other people. So that would be my suggestion. I guess not everybody will necessarily agree with me, but what I'm sharing with you is my views and my opinions on here. Let's get our next question up on screen. So this is from Sunset on YouTube. That is a beautiful sunset, but I'm guessing that's not your real name, but hey, that's okay. Hi Saj, please can you advise on how to borrow a larger amount from the bank for a mortgage, please? I have a 100K deposit and I want to buy a property for 350, 400K range. Is there any other information or is that it? What are your thoughts on, that's a different question, I think. Okay, that's it. So that's fine. So essentially what you're, so from the little information I have, which is probably not enough to answer it properly, but I'm assuming it's either going to be a property to purchase your home or it's going to be an investment property. It's going to be one of those two. Now, if it's a property you're purchasing as a home and you're looking for a mortgage, in either cases, you want a good, competent, independent mortgage broker that can help you try and find the right products, understand your circumstances, and see which is going to be the best route for you to be able to get the right mortgage products for you. But generally speaking, when it comes to buying a home, your income is going to be taken into consideration, your affordability is going to be looked at, your credit file is going to be looked at, what you're earning, the stability of your job. And if you look at your gross salary and 4.5 times that, that's probably what you're going to be able to borrow. Regardless of how much deposit you got, that's going to be the cap. Then, of course, it's the loan to value. How much of a percentage of the property you'll be able to borrow. Say, for example, it's a £400,000 property and it's a 75% mortgage. That means you'll be able to borrow £300,000 and you put down £100,000 as a deposit. But that £300,000 needs to be based on you being able to afford that. So that needs to be no more than 4.5 times your salary, generally speaking now. So I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just sharing with you my experience for educational purposes. So this is where you really need to speak to a broker. It's for residential mortgage. Okay, that's good. Thank you for clarifying that because that helps. So this is essentially what the route you need to look at. It's really going to be driven on your affordability. So if you've got a nice expensive car that you've got on finance, if you've got a really expensive gym membership that you've got each month as well, all of these things are going to affect your affordability because it's about how much money have you got left each month to be able to pay the mortgage. And remember, mortgage rates are probably the lowest they have been at any point in the past. So what that means is that the rates now, they are so low, but in the future, they're bound to rise. If you can just about afford the property now, what's going to happen when the interest rates start to rise? Because believe me, they are going to rise at some point. Now, if you look at historically in the past, they've varied up to about 14, 15%. Some crazy numbers have gone up to, but it's not been unusual for it to be 5, 6, 7% type range. That's been quite common over the last like 20 odd years. So when you look at this, you've got to think about what is it you can afford? What is it you could afford if the rates change, which they will at some point, and how's that going to work? This is where a good broker will help you with that. And if you need some assistance with a broker, just reach out to us, message us on one of the social media platforms, and we'll connect you with a broker that can help you with that. So our next question, Coxie Axe on YouTube. As a beginner, do you think I should hire a mentor? Well, look, what is a mentor? What's a coach and what's knowledge? Let's kind of just do some clarification here. So I see this as 3 separate areas. So you've got training, which is information. You've got coaching, which is support. And then you've got mentoring, which is support as well. So training is really information in my mind. It's the knowledge on how to do something, which is what I'm sharing with you now. I'm giving you, it's fairly high level. We can't go deep into it in the time that we have. But this is kind of high level information on how to do something. You can get that from watching YouTube videos, from reading a book, from forums, from listening to other people, from magazines. You know, there's lots of places you can get information. You can also sit in workshops, you can do online courses, and that's all information on how to do something. Then what a coach will do, a coach will help you get the best out of yourself. So one of the first questions we started with today was, how can I be more productive? How can I get more best use of the time that I have in terms of what I'm doing in property? So when, you know, what the coach is doing is helping you really get the best out of you so you perform to the best of your ability. Now, the coach isn't necessarily someone that's done everything you want to do, but they have some skills and been able to get the best out of somebody and supporting them to do that. So what I call it's more reflective. How do you think you could find the answer? Where could you look to do certain things? Who else do you think could help you? These type of kind of reflective questions. And then a mentor really is somebody, in my mind, that's already achieved what it is you're trying to achieve. So they've trodden down that path and they can share their experience and they can shortcut some of the processes for you. And that's a way to think about it. So what I do, you know, I do some training where I'm giving information, knowledge, like I am now. We're putting together some online training courses as well to really help people in terms of building their knowledge on property investing. But some people, that's all they need. And for those of you looking for more support, like this is the website to head to. That's my mentoring group where I really help them to be able to get the best results that they want, help them work out what their goals are, what they want to achieve. It's much more personalized around them and helping them achieve the results. Now, of course, you're making different investments. Like here, you're investing your time. You could be buying a book for £10, or you could be spending £10,000 with some mentoring and training programs. It's really what's right for you. And I've spent a lot of money on various programs, kind of just trying to get better, improve myself and what I'm doing. And look, every day is a learning day for me. I try and get better and improve my knowledge every single day because I want to achieve more, I want to do more, I want to be more. So I'm constantly working on myself. I have a number of mentors that help me in different aspects of my business, in sales, in property development, in marketing. You know, all different aspects of my business have different people that help and support me. But it's really a decision for you, what you feel is right for you. So, you know, we can help you with knowledge in terms of information, how to do things, and we can help you with mentoring in terms of hand-holding through the process and supporting you with that to help get the results that you want. So I hope that helps. Hope that answers your question for you. Next, get our next question up. Next question's on YouTube from Gary Banger. Hi Saj, I am looking on converting a house into a 6-bedroom, a 6-bed HMO. The architect's advising me that I need a management plan along with my drawings when submitted. Is that something you've come across? So I'm straining to read a little bit. The screen's a little bit further around. I've got the light shining in my eyes as well. The lighting is not quite right this evening. So a management plan, I'm not entirely sure what you mean by that, but what it could mean is how you're going to deal with your waste. So waste management program, how you're going to deal with transport such as bikes or parking. You might have a plan around that. So it might be these are the plans that your architect's referring to. So for example, a transport report could be where you get a highways consultant that has a look at what you're trying to do. Let's say you've got a busy terrace street and you've got no parking. So we're doing just one at the moment. And then we think, okay, so when we make an application for planning going to say, right, well, where's your tenants going to park? So then the highways consultant puts together a report to hopefully support your case and say, well, look, you know, a lot of these tenants either haven't got cars, public transport like trains, buses, metro is very close by. There's bicycle storage we've got for those that may be using bikes as well. So, you know, you put together a plan of how you're going to deal with these things. So when it goes in, your planning application goes in, these reports are supporting your application to appease the planners about how you're going to deal with certain aspects. Like waste management is a big problem. They're going to think, right, so, you know, if you've got 6 people living in this house, you know, how are you going to deal with all the rubbish? A normal regular wheelie bin is not going to be enough for 6 separate people. So how are you going to deal with that? So you're putting a plan in, a report to say this is what we're going to do. It might have cleaners going in, say the cleaners are going to go in once a week. They're going to go on a certain day where they take the rubbish out, put the bins out. You might have a refuge bin that you're going to have organized, and that's going to be part of your waste management, for example. So these are the kind of things you're probably referring to, or your architect's probably referring to when they're talking about a management plan. If that's not what he means, let me know, but I think that's what he's probably referring to then. I think it's a good idea because the more you have to support your case, the more likely it is to actually go through smoothly. The less you have supporting your case, the more harder it's going to be because the more objections you're going to have, the more questions the planners might have for you, and the longer that might take as well. So let's get our next question up. This is from Dan Aziz. Hi Saj, do I look to buy a small terraced home or for a flat in the Midlands? Idea is to let the property. I guess not really enough information there, Dan. So, you know, if you're purchasing a home, then it's a very different thing from purchasing an investment property. So I'm guessing your money is enough to either buy you a small terrace house for yourself as a home, or you buy an investment property. Say, for example, in the Midlands, that might be able to do that. But first of all, you need to start from what is it you're trying to achieve? What's important for you? You know, what's the objectives? You know, where you're trying to build up a portfolio for the long run? Are you trying to get some cash flow going now? Are you trying to secure a roof over your own head and your family? You know, what's the right thing for you? So that's really where the question needs to come from. What is it you're trying to achieve? It's not really how can I spend this money? It's what is it you're trying to achieve with that money that you have. So for instance, it may be that you purchase a home as a property, and you maybe have a lodger or two in that property as well. That means they're also giving you some income as well with that property. You might be living there and you're renting out a couple of rooms there as well in the property. So that's giving you a little bit of income, which may be the same as maybe purchasing a property. And of course, when you're selling that property, you haven't got capital gains tax because it's your primary residence. You haven't got any taxation you're paying on that. As well, so you can benefit from that. If you're adding some value, you sell that, you make a chunk of cash out of it. So there's many different strategies, many different ways to approach it. So ultimately, it's really about what is it you're trying to achieve and which is going to be the right route. On my YouTube channel, I've got a video on which is the right strategy for you. So again, just search on the channel for strategy and you'll find a video about trying to help you find the right strategy and talking about really depending on where you're based in location, what you're trying in the country, what is it you're trying to achieve, what the economic cycle is doing at that moment in time, how much time you've got, how much money you've got to spend, how much knowledge you have, what are the skills you might be bringing to the table. Really collectively, you need to think about all these things to try and work out which might be the right property investing strategy for you to really be able to build your business. I hope that helps. Remember, I'm here every Monday evening at 8:30 p.m. I say every Monday evening. We've been running for 59 episodes, and very soon this particular show and format will be coming to an end over the next few weeks. So make sure you're making the most of these sessions because we're making some changes to this. And of course, if you haven't already, make sure you head over to my YouTube channel. Make sure you subscribe to that as well because there's lots of great content we put out. As I said, there's over 200 videos on there, over 500,000 views that have happened on that. So, and 15,000 plus subscribers, which I'm so grateful for you doing that. And of course, that's what inspired me to do more of this content and help you ultimately get further faster in your property investing journey. So it just leaves me to say thank you so much for joining me here this evening. I look forward to seeing you again next Monday at 8:30 p.m. Thank you so much.